Hey everybody, I'm Scott. Today we're going to talk about understanding our ability to multiply money. So just like it says up there, investing with age is our advantage. Even I don't have the advantage that you have. And we're going to learn about that tonight. We're going to learn about 3 rules of thumb, simple rules of thumb that you can remember and internalize and use throughout your life to succeed with investing. It doesn't have to be complex. It's actually really simple. Money is a personal thing. Connect with a financial professional. I know someone said they're going to try to become a financial advisor at some point, right? And have them customize your situation for you. I want to get you 90% of the way there on your own and confident enough to meet with a financial advisor to say, what do you think, right? And have them optimize your situation. So why am I here? People that are retiring here in America, they have some financial regrets. And what are those regrets? Well, they say, I wish I had saved more earlier. I wish I could go back and do it all over again. I wish I knew then what I know now. And I don't know if you guys know that, but that's what retirees in large degree are saying about money when they retire, right? And the funny thing is, that's what 50-some-year-olds are saying too. And that's what 40-some-year-olds are saying too. And I'm somewhere around in that range. I myself was saying that too. If I could go back to your age and do things over again and know what I know now, I would have done things way differently and acted with so much more confidence and vigor, and it would have made a huge difference. That's okay though, because I figured it out at some point, but not as early as right now. So these things that we hear, this good advice that we hear out there, save early, right? You guys have heard things like that before, but I didn't take any action. I acted timidly with money because this doesn't get you to take action. Make your money work for you. You've heard that one before too. So if you're investing, the money's growing on its own, make your money work for you. How about this one? You guys know this one, compound interest? It's the 8th wonder of the world. Who is attributed to saying that? Einstein? Albert Einstein. Give the man a book. Please pass that book back to him. So he's attributed with saying it. Whether he said it or not for real, people don't know. But at least he's a pretty smart guy and people think he said that. But people still hear this one and they don't take action. Is compound interest really the same as these pyramids of Giza, the 7th wonder of the world? Shouldn't we be paying attention to this thing? But most people hear this and they just keep on going. Anybody know what they're doing instead of really jumping in and using compound interest? They're spending it. Yes, Americans are very good at purchasing. We are the most marketed to country in the world, right? $400 billion in our country. We're the #1 advertiser and marketer in the world. And someone said they were studying marketing, right? And I'm a marketer myself as well. So I'm kind of guilty for getting people to buy things they weren't planning on. Back to this magical time of our lives, 22 years old, that's when we graduate typically from a 4-year degree and we start our careers, right? This is the magical time. And some of you are right here, right now, and some of you are a little bit younger than this. That's why I'm here. That's why I came back to my school to talk to you. Okay, so money is big. The average person earns around $2 million across their lifetime. You're going to make about 1.5 transactions per day for the rest of your life. That's about 30,000 financial transactions in a lifetime. The average person is going to go to school for about 18 years to learn how to make money. You're going to spend 40 years potentially making the money. And then when you retire, you might spend 20 years spending the money. So money and the immersion in money, it's massive. We got to figure this stuff out. But it's optional. You're opting into learning about money. Many people do not. So tonight, these 3 rules of thumb we're going to go over are going to create the motivation to invest. That's what's missing. People know you should save early. They kind of have an idea how this stuff works. They just don't do it. So I'm going to try to motivate you with these 3 rules of thumb. I want to put this slide up here to say that most people are intimidated by money. There's some guilt. There's some shame. Have I not been doing the right thing? We don't feel like it's for us to know. But every single person should have ownership over their own money. Take a look at this matrix right here. There's 3 columns. We're going to start by talking about retirement, because that's the biggest thing you're ever going to really save up for besides a house and retirement. So we have 3 columns. When do you start your career? And we just talked about that. The length of the average career and the rate of return that money can bring across 40 years on average. So there's so many options here. There's actually thousands of combinations possible. And people get overwhelmed by that, and so they just stop and do nothing. It's called analysis paralysis. But what we're going to do is we're going to take one path with understanding money. Your path may be slightly different, but when you make money freeze and you say this is the most common path of what happens to the average employee, then you can build off of that foundation. So We're just going to go ahead and choose 3 numbers here. We're going to say the average person starts a career at age 22, works for 40 years, and earns a 7.2% rate of return on money. So stocks, bonds, over 40 years. Anybody know why we're choosing that number? 7.2. Does that mean anything to anybody? Does anybody know the rule of 72? Yeah, so we're going to take the number 72, divide by a rate of return 7.2, and you get the number of years to double your money. 10, right? 72 divided by 7.2 is 10. So remember that, okay? We're going to use that. What are the most common ways to invest? If you just start out with the simplest, most available, most accessible ways of investing, that's a very good place to start. Companies and our government, they try to make things really available for you so you can succeed. The 401k retirement plan, the individual retirement account, the S&P 500 index fund, and then you have a target date mutual fund. We'll talk more about all of these, but these simple, totally accessible ways of investing are a great way to start, right? We don't need to overcomplicate things when we get started. We can become more savvy over time. We're going to jump in and really get to learn these rules of thumb. Here we go. If someone was to invest $1,000, right, and it's earning that 7.2% rate of return, we know that 10 years later, it doubled. And you didn't do anything else. You didn't add another cent. You just let it be, earning that 7.2% in a 401k or IRA or the S&P 500. Now we have this rule of thumb. So I call them financial epiphanies. Number 1 is a single investment of money can double every 10 years. It's taking the 2 very simple principles of doubling and my favorite number, 10, and it's putting them together. This is kind of aligning some things that really, really belong together. If you remember this is extremely, extremely simple to figure out finances for the rest of your life. Under common circumstances, money can double every 10 years. You just put money in, never do anything else, it can double. Now we're going to build on for the second financial epiphany. Who works 10 years and then is done? Typically, we said the average American will work 40 years, right? So we know if we don't touch this $2,000 after it's doubled, what happens? It just doubles again, and you didn't do anything. And what if you didn't touch it again, right? Because you're going to work 30 years at least. 4,000 doubles into 8,000. And what if you didn't do anything at all again? It doubled again, right? After 40 years of working. So you put in $1,000 and it turned into $16,000. That is incredible. And you didn't even touch it. You just put in the $1,000. That's a huge gain, $15,000 gain, right, on your money, only because you did it early. You did it at 22 in this case. So to simplify that, we could just say when you put in money and you invest it for 40 years, that it multiplies by 16 times. But guess what? Money nerds like me and like many of you, you look at an exponential growth chart like this and that excites you. But guess what? It doesn't excite most Americans. Most people look at this and they're like, 40 years? Like, I'm very impatient. I want something now, right? We want instant gratification in this world, right? So I sat at my living room table one time with my feet up and I was like, okay, I like this, but this is not getting other people to take action. How can we rethink this? And this is what you do. You flip the chart. And when you flip the chart, you're no longer growing an object, money. This is now you. This is an ability. This 16 times here is your ability to multiply money. You have the ability to multiply money by 16 times when you start your career. By quantifying this, we now have a number, a very easy number to remember, where we can tell ourselves, wow, if I act now, it's 16 times more powerful than acting later when I retire. So with that, think about this, because we're diffusing a myth here. Most people think that, oh, I'll wait till later. That's when we're forced to figure out money. You have the option to think about money now. NFL football players, Olympic ice skaters, and gymnasts, they're at their primes around their early 20s. And the same thing is true with money. I don't know if you knew that. You may not think that you're the best at multiplying money now, but you actually are. And this is how finances work, is multiplying money, it's like planting a tree. You don't plant a seed and hope that it's a tree the next day. It takes time. Money is the same thing, okay? So I want you to get that you have this ability and it's like athletic ability and it actually wears off over time. So you have the power of 16 using this rule of 72, 7.2% rate of return, working 40 years. And that's just looking at an average and standard situation. Now, this is the last financial epiphany we're going to talk about here. We're going to pull this back up here, the power of 16, right? Now look at that slope. What's happening there? We're going to put our numbers back on, okay? 10 years later, your multiplying power halves to the multiplying power of 8. Okay, so in our early 30s, generally speaking, this is a rule of thumb, we're doing general stuff here, you have the multiplying power of 8. It just halved. So if you waited till your early 30s to start investing, you just lost half your multiplying power already. And what happens in your early 40s? It halves again, multiplying power of 4. And in your early 50s, the multiplying power of 2. And what happens in your early 60s? You retire, hopefully. Enjoy the fruits of your labor. Calling it quits, you're done, right? 40 years just passed, right? So there you have it. Let's throw the ages back on there. So this is a very simple framework. If you had no idea what to do, if you should act now, if you should wait till later, now you have an idea. If you're the average worker doing the average thing, and some of you are going to try to beat this system, which you can get as nerdy with money as you want, and you can try to beat the system. But the average person, this is about what's happening. And it's a good place to start knowing this. You can always try to beat it later. This is called loss aversion when your multiplying power diminishes, right? Just like athletic ability. You can't expect to be the best basketball player, football player, baseball player forever. It's going to diminish, right? And so does your multiplying power, generally speaking. So it's good to know this, that it's not the other way around. It's more like this. Okay, so financial epiphany number 3 is your multiplying power halves every 10 years, right? It's kind of the opposite of what we just talked about with money growing. Your multiplying power halves. And when you think about it as your ability, it creates the urgency to act. The 3 financial epiphanies are a single investment of money can double every 10 years. You start your career with the power of 16, this multiplying power, and that multiplying power halves every 10 years. And that is as simple as it gets. The doubling can happen over time under the most common circumstances, using the most common investment tools available for the most common worker. So I'm showing you this graph here one more time. I need to illustrate a little story about what each of these points means. And when you look at these numbers, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, those are doubling numbers, right? They're doubling. But this is also called cognitive chunking. All right, cognitive chunking. Yes, there are more numbers in between these. Yes, there are more years in between these. But when you only look at these, it's more easy to remember. It's like a phone number has 3 parts, right? The area code, the prefix, and what's called the line number, the 4 digits at the end. And when we only look at these years and not everything in between, it's easier to remember. So the power of 16, what does that really feel like? Well, who has a part-time job here? Anybody? Part-time jobs? Okay, some of you. Now, if you worked a week of work and you got paid for that week, that's what you signed up for, okay? But if you worked that same week of work and you got paid double, your boss said, you did pretty good, I'm gonna pay you double, and you weren't expecting that, you would be ecstatic, right? You would be like, oh my goodness, I just got paid double. And that's the power of 2. That's what that feels like when your efforts or money doubles. But what is the power of 16 like? It's like working a week of work and getting paid for 4 months. That is how powerful this is, and I want you to realize that I want you to take advantage of this, because working a week of work and getting paid for 4 months, and then working another week of work and getting paid for 4 months, that is what you want to take advantage of. I talked to a fella, and he was in his early 30s, and he came to me, he was like, hey, I have $25,000 in the bank, it's in my checking account. I'm like, oh my goodness, what are you doing with that in your checking account, earning nothing? We need to move that. Let's get that 7.2% rate of return. And by simply telling him, you're in your early 30s, you have the power of 8, multiply 25,000 by 8, this is $200,000 when you retire, right? He understood his multiplying power. And then there was a couple, and they're in their early 40s, and they weren't really saving for retirement much. They realized they had the power of 4, that every $1,000 they put in turned into $4,000 over and over and over again as they invested more. They maxed out their retirement accounts. They put in as much as they could. And they continued to do that when they realized they had the multiplying power of 4. And then this multiplying power of 2, I knew someone in the early 50s, and that person said, wow, I can double my money one more time before I retire? That's amazing. So he looked at maxing out his retirement accounts, but then you know what he did? He looked back at his daughter, who was 22, just graduating, and he said, I'm gonna teach her she has the power of 16. He had a simple rule of thumb to now tell his daughter, so she could get all excited about this. Now, obviously, you certainly can retire and still multiply money, but we only look at these 40 years because we're simplifying. Our finish line here is 62, retirement. And I want to tell you a little story about Ernie. I went to Sierra Leone, West Africa, one of the poorest nations in the world. And I filmed a video, because that's what I do. I filmed this video about what this nonprofit organization does. They build schools, churches, and clinics to help the people there that can't afford these things, all right? Came back. This was about a 100-hour project. Lots of video editing, lots of footage, lots of travel. And I went to the fundraising event. And I sat next to this guy, Ernie, tall guy with a cane. And I sat down next to him and I thought, what do we have to do with each other? This is assigned seating. What am I doing at the front of the room at this fundraising event? What do Ernie and I have in common? I found out Ernie had paid for me to go and paid for me to create that video. And that was not cheap. And it was like I had just met a new uncle. And it was just amazing. I mean, my heart was so pouring out knowing that he had done this for me without even knowing me. The video showed Ernie leans over to me and says, hey, this is the first time we're seeing it. So my wife and I, when we came over here, we had decided how much we were going to donate. And he said, don't tell my wife, but I just doubled it. And so Ernie had not only sent for me to go to Africa and create this video and doubled his giving, he had done so because he had multiplied his money. He had surplus, he had extra to not go boots on the ground to Africa, but he could send me to do so. And I want the same for you, to have a life of purpose, because money isn't just about spending it on yourself and being proud of your net worth. It's actually to fund your purpose. And that's what I want you to get to that point of funding your purpose. When you realize your ability to multiply money, it is a superpower, it really is. You have it. You probably have 4 times more multiplying power than I do right now. This 78% number is the amount of Americans that are living paycheck to paycheck, okay? At all ages, stages, and wages of life. We're spending as much as we make, most of us are. That's the biggest message we're getting about money every day, is to spend. So of course, if that's what we're hearing, that influences our actions and our behaviors. 77% of us are in debt, right? So that's another figure. And there is a low level of financial literacy in our country, right? Most of us cannot pass a financial literacy test because it's not taught. Our parents may not be doing it. The schools may not be doing it. So I'm really happy that many of you are learning tonight and in a finance-related club. So what do we do with that? So this is the end of this section of the talk, which is where we talked about your ability to multiply money. I'm just putting the points back up on here, the 3 financial epiphanies. And this chart, which is an illustration of financial epiphany number 2 and 3, right? Starting with the multiplying power of 16 and that diminishing over time. So that's it all summed up. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.